Yo, Pascal here, nice to see you again on my channel. And over the past few months I got asked a lot how I do all the transitions in my travel videos, and I would actually say that in basically all travel videos all over YouTube that are produced right now, both on my channel but also other channels, there are basically variations of 5 kinds of transitions that are used all the time. And so in this video I want to show you those 5 types of transitions and how to use them. So this is actually the last video of my 30-day challenge, so if you haven't subscribed before and if you haven't seen my other videos, then do that after watching that video directly. And I'm back on Bali right now, as you can see. Like, my last video was still shot in Bangkok, yeah, but now I'm here. I love Bali, so the next weeks will be awesome. I also want to go to Lombok to shoot some more videos, so there's nice content in the future coming up. But yeah, let's talk about the transitions that I will probably also use for the videos of Lombok. And yeah, so there are, like mentioned before, 5 types of transitions, and all those transitions that you see in the travel videos right now are variations of those transitions, because you can actually do quite a lot with that. So let's get started. The first transition is the speed ramp transition. So how you do it is basically you want to have 2 shots, and both shots should move in the same or different direction, ideally. You can also do this transition if it's not moving in the same direction, but it won't look as nice, especially if you move in completely different directions. Like, it's okay if like the first shot moves to the right and the next shot moves slightly up or so on, but if like the first shot moves right and the next shot moves left, then this transition wouldn't work. And how you do it is simply that you speed up the end of the first clip and the beginning of the second clip, and then your eyes can't really see anymore the transition, and that looks a lot smoother. It's also good in these transitions if the last part of your first clip looks around the same as the first part of your second clip. So for example, if you swipe your camera behind a wall, or if you move your camera up in the sky, and then in the next shot you start up in the sky and you move down, then you get a nice effect there. So that's the speed ramp transition. Looks very nice, it's easy to do. You can do it in Final Cut and Premiere. You can also do it in LumaFusion on the iPad, but it won't look as good because it doesn't have this like speed ramping. It like the speed is a hard cut, so it won't look as smooth as in professional grade video editors, but you can also do it on the iPad. And to do those transitions, it's also important to think about doing those transitions directly when you're filming, so that you swipe a bit in the shot and you swipe out, so that you have a bit more movement, because you want to have movement to be able to do speed ramping. And the second type of video transitions that is used a lot, and that is also quite famous, is zoom and slide transitions. And those transitions are usually done by simply applying an effect that you can either buy or get for free on the internet. For example, Ryan Nangle has good packs for that, but you can also just Google it, just type in smooth zoom transitions or smooth like slide transitions or whatever, and you will find a lot. And then just have a look on what kind of these effects you like the most for your footage. There are actually a lot of different ones that look slightly different, but at the end they all do the same. And those transitions basically work all quite different. They simply mirror parts of your footage so that they have more space in the image where they can like do zooms and crops. So for example, when you want to have a zoom in transition, then your first shot is quite easy. Like, let's say this is the shot and you can simply zoom in. This is what the effect does. And in the second shot, then it's a bit more complicated, because you have this like image, but you want to start like that to be able to zoom in to fit this image. And what it does simply is that it lays some like mirrors around the image so that it has more space at the beginning to have this zoom effect. In some kind of footage that looks quite good, especially when the edges of the image are very similar over both shots, but in other shots it might also not look that good, because then the effect becomes too obvious because of that mirroring. But you should definitely have a plugin or something like that that has this effect, because in a lot of cases you can just throw it on your footage and it makes it look a bit nicer. But use it with caution. Some people really use it too much, Therefore, I would also say that if you want to use it, your camera movement should go in the same direction, otherwise it would just look weird. And it should also fit your story, because for example, when I zoom in into a shot and all those shots have nothing in common, like for example, I have a drone shot and I want to move to a close-up shot of a person that stands somewhere in the drone shot, then it could make sense to make this zoom transition. But making a zoom transition maybe from a city to an ocean side, that just doesn't make any sense. So use them with caution, but when you use them right, it can actually look very good. And the third type of transitions that's actually a bit more advanced and it takes more time, but it also looks a lot nicer, I would say, and that is the mask transitions. And mask transitions are basically also that you have camera movement in the same direction, but you always have an object in front of at least one shot of this camera movement. So for example, if I have my first shot where I move behind an object and I have a second shot with the camera moving around the same direction, then I can mask out one edge of this object in the first shot and use this to reveal the second shot. And I show you here how I do that in a bit speed up way for my screen sharing, that you can see it in a, like I do a very basic one to keep it fast here, but you can even do that with more complex objects like cars, for example. But the problem here is really that you have to animate the mask, and that takes a lot of time. When you use After Effects for that, you can probably do rotoscoping or so on, that might save a lot of time. But even there you have to correct it a little bit, and yeah, it always takes longer than other transitions. That's why I don't use it too much. But yeah, if I have the option to use it, then I do it, and I just love this transition. It looks great, and especially with the mask transitions, you can do so many variations with that, because there are no limits. You can basically use every object that comes in front of your camera to do a mask transition, and that's why it's so flexible and actually used quite a lot in travel videos. And the first type of transitions that we have here is the keying transition. And this transition works a bit similar to a mask transition, because what it basically does is also that it removes a part of your image so that the second clip is revealed, but it does it in another way. So what keying means is basically that you key either a color or a luminance level out. So for example, if you have a green color in your image, then you can key out the green color only. And if you have, let's say, an image with a strong contrast, then you can key out only the bright areas and the dark areas stay there and will be removed later. Or you can do the opposite by first removing the shadow, like the dark areas, and keeping the highlight area. So there are a lot of options with keying. I also show that to you here, how that works. And the keying transition, you can use it a lot for transitions, obviously, but you can also do something like sky replacement with that. For example, if you have a very bright sky, then it's usually quite easy to replace that with a luma keyer, and you can like insert a sky that looks a bit more beautiful, for example, has a bit more clouds, or another sunset if the sunset that you filmed you don't like, but you like the rest of your shot, and so on. But like the usual transition stuff is simply that it like first removes either the shadows and or the highlights, and then in the second step the other part of the image is removed, what gives it a bit nicer look. You can also see that on the screen capture that I put in here, so that you know exactly what I mean. The good way about keying is also that you can combine keying with masking, because sometimes it can be quite hard to mask an object, and in that case you can sometimes just draw a mask like somewhere around what the area that you want to mask out. Then you can also apply a keyer to key the rest of it. That works, for example, if you film, for example, outside a window. So when it's bright outside, you can key out the bright part, but with a mask, if you have some other bright objects in your room, for example, then you can make sure that the keyer only works within those masks that you have set. I don't show you an exact example of that here right now, because it would take a bit too much time, but I think you got the idea of what I want to do with that. And let's come to the last and the fifth transition, and that is actually in camera transitions. You're basically doing that a little bit with speed ramping already, but there are other ways you can do that. For example, one way is that one, and there you have the transition. So I basically just get my hand onto the lens in the first shot and I removed it from my lens in the second shot. That's an in-camera transition, a very easy one, but you can do it in so many ways. Like you can slide your camera behind a wall, a bit like a speed ramp transition, but like doing it like without a speed ramp. You can, for example, just jump and then in the next video you jump again. So it's basically in-camera transitions. What they do is always that you have the same movement at the end of the first shot and the beginning of the second shot, and then when you combine those clips, then you can't see it anymore. So it's actually quite simple. Like there are unlimited ways how you do that. That's why I just showed you like this example here right now, because that's quite easy to do. But yeah, just be creative and play around with these transitions. So that's already it, those 5 transitions that are really used in most travel videos right now, and it's always a variation. So when you learned these transitions, then you are able to create most of the transitions that are used in my videos, that are used in videos from BenTK, Sam Kolder or whoever. And I mean, at the end, really what those guys differentiate from other guys that don't do it so good is just a creative point. Like you have to know those transitions technically first, and then you're able to create those like really awesome transitions, because it's all a variation, especially with masking transitions and with keying, especially when you combine it, you can do so much. It's amazing. And then like you have all those features when you zoom in and so on. Like there's so much you can do, and especially when you shoot in 4K, then you have a lot of options. So the next steps for you should definitely be to at first learn those 5 transitions, like get some example footage, go out and get some shots that you can use to create those transitions like I told you in this video. And then just try it out on your computer, make sure that you got it and that you know how it works. And then in the future, when you want to shoot a travel video, like when you shoot the video, already think about like what transitions can I use later in post-production when I film this footage, and then make sure that you film it in a way that makes it easy for you to create those transitions later. So for example, when I want to do a keying transitions, I make sure that I have a high contrast in my video. Also, when I want to do a swipe transitions, then of course I need to make sure that I swipe into one shot, and then in a shot before I need to swipe out. Stuff like that. Just think about that while you're filming already, and then later when you go on your computer, try to be creative, really make something unique out of that. And that comes over time. Like the more experience you gain, the easier it gets for you, and that can make your videos look a lot nicer. But also don't do it too much, please. Your video is still there to tell a story and show some nice images, and not just there to show some transitions that you drag and dropped from your effects browser, right? So I hope you liked that video. If yes, then please leave me a like, and if you want to see more tutorials like that, then hit the subscribe button right now, and see you in the next video.